April 9th, 1241. The fields outside Legnica are quiet in the pre-dawn darkness, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes every breath feel too loud. Frost clings to the grass, and in the distance, if you listen carefully, you can hear what sounds like distant thunder rolling across the plain. But it isn't thunder. It's the sound of 8,000 Mongol horsemen preparing for battle. Their horses stamping in the cold, their composite bows being tested one last time. Duke Henry II of Silesia rides out from the city gates with 25,000 men behind him. Poles, Germans, Moravians, even Knights Templar from France. Just hours earlier, a stone fell from the church tower as he mounted his horse, missing his head by inches. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew what it meant. But Henry has no choice. One day away, King Wenceslaus marches north with 50,000 reinforcements. If Henry can hold for just 24 hours, the combined armies will crush the invaders. The Mongols know this too. That's why the battle must happen today, right now, on this frozen field. What happens next will decide whether Europe stands or falls. April 9th, 1241. Dawn breaks cold over the fields of Silesia. Frost clings to the grass near a small village that will later be known as Legnicy Pole, the field of Legnica. The air is still, too still. In the distance, if you strain your ears, you can hear something that sounds like distant thunder. But it's not thunder. It's the sound of 8,000 Mongol horsemen preparing for battle. 10 kilometers to the northwest, Duke Henry II of Silesia rides out from the city of Legnica. He's just attended Mass at the Church of St. Mary. As he mounted his horse, a stone fell from the church tower. It missed his head by inches. The crowd gasped. Everyone knew what it meant. A bad omen. The Duke ignored it. He had no choice. Behind him marches an army of 25,000 men. Poles, Germans, Moravians, even a small contingent of Knights Templar from France. They are the last organized force standing between the Mongol horde and the heart of Christian Europe. The numbers look good on paper. 25,000 against 8,000. But Duke Henry knows something his men don't. Those 8,000 have already destroyed 3 Polish armies in the past 2 months. They burned Krakow on Palm Sunday. They massacred the voivode of Krakow and his entire force at Chmielnik. They move like nothing Europe has ever seen, 50 miles a day, striking before anyone knows they're coming. And there's something else. King Wenceslaus of Bohemia is marching north with 50,000 men. He's 1 day away. 1 single day. If Henry can hold out, if he can delay the Mongols for just 24 hours, the combined European army will outnumber the invaders 3-1. The Mongols know this too. That's why they're here. That's why this battle must happen today. For the first time in history, the full weight of Mongol military genius, perfected across the steppes of Asia, tested in the ruins of Chinese cities, sharpened against the armies of Persia and Rus, would crash against the medieval knighthood of Europe. The outcome would determine whether Western Christendom survived or fell like so many empires before it. This is the story of the Battle of Legnica, and it would prove that courage, armor, and faith were not enough against the deadliest military machine the medieval world had ever known. To understand what brought these 2 armies to a frozen field in Silesia, we need to go back 2 months. February 1241. Poland is fragmented, divided into 4 separate duchies, each ruled by a different branch of the Piast family. They quarrel constantly. They compete for power. They are not united. And the Mongols know it. The invasion begins in the dead of winter. A Mongol army crosses from recently conquered Rus into Polish territory. They move fast, faster than anyone thought possible. Winter wasn't supposed to be campaign season. Medieval European armies didn't march in February. The Mongols did. They had a different understanding of warfare entirely. The first city to fall is Lublin, then Sandomierz. The Mongols don't occupy these places. They don't garrison them. They burn them. They loot them. They kill anyone who resists and enslave the rest. Then they move on. This isn't conquest in the European sense. This is strategic devastation. The Mongol objective is simple: prevent Poland from sending help to Hungary, where the main Mongol force under Batu Khan and the legendary general Subutai is preparing to invade. On February 13th, a Polish army under the voivode of Krakow tries to stop them at a place called Tursko. The Mongols employ their signature tactic. They engage the Polish cavalry briefly, then turn and flee. The Poles think they're winning. They break formation and pursue. The Mongols wheel around. Light cavalry appears on the flanks. Arrows rain down from every direction. The Polish force is annihilated. The voivode, Włodzimierz, dies on the field. 5 weeks later, March 18th, it happens again. Another Polish army, this time reinforced with troops from Sandomierz, meets the Mongols at Chmielnik. Same result. The Mongols feign retreat. The Poles chase. They fall into the trap. The Castellan Clemens of Brzeźnica is killed, along with most of his men. Poland is learning a terrible lesson. European tactics don't work against these invaders. 6 days after Chmielnik, on Palm Sunday, March 24th, the Mongols enter Krakow. The citizens have already fled. The 15-year-old Duke Boleslav V and his mother ran to Hungary days earlier, abandoning the capital. The Mongols spend the day looting, then they set it on fire. The ancient capital of Poland burns. By late March, the Mongol force splits. Part of it, under Order Khan, devastates northern Poland, ranging as far as the Lithuanian border. The main body, under Baidar and Kadan, turns west toward Silesia. They approach Wrocław, the Silesian capital. The city is fortified. The Mongols could take it, but sieges take time. And time is something they don't have. Because at this moment, Duke Henry II is gathering an army. Henry is different from the other Polish princes. He's the most powerful among them. He controls Silesia, most of Lesser Poland, and Greater Poland. He's been High Duke of Poland since 1238. He has ambitions, real ambitions. He wants to reunify Poland and crown himself king. He's been working toward this for years. The Mongol invasion threatens everything. Henry is 45 years old. They call him the Pious because of his religious devotion. He's founded monasteries, granted land to the church, attended Mass daily. But piety doesn't make him soft. He's led military campaigns before. He fought in Prussia. He secured the Lubush lands. He knows war. And now he's sending urgent messages across Silesia and beyond. Come to Legnica. Bring every man who can fight. We make our stand here. The response is mixed. His cousin, Mieszko II, the Duke of Opole Raciborz, brings forces from Upper Silesia. Survivors from the disasters at Tursko and Chmielnik straggle in. A Moravian contingent arrives under a nobleman named Boleslav. And then, miraculously, a small group of Knights Templar appears. They've ridden from France, sent by the Pope. They number maybe 80 men. But they're among the finest warriors in Christendom. Heavily armoured, superbly trained, veterans of the Crusades. Their presence lifts spirits. Henry sends another message, this one to his brother-in-law, King Wenceslaus I of Bohemia. Wenceslaus is married to Henry's wife's sister. Family ties matter. The king responds. He's gathering a massive army, 50,000 men. He's marching north. He'll be there soon. But Wenceslaus moves slowly. His army is huge, which means it requires enormous supply trains. They can manage maybe 15 miles a day. The Mongols, meanwhile, have an intelligence network that European commanders can barely comprehend. They use merchants as spies. They interrogate prisoners systematically. They gather information constantly. And by early April, they know everything. They know Henry is at Legnica. They know his army is still assembling. They know about Wenceslaus. They know the Bohemian king is 1 day's march away. The Mongol commanders, Baydar, Kadan and Orda, make a decision. They break off the siege of Wrocław. They march rapidly toward Legnica. Their objective is crystal clear. Destroy Henry's army before Wenceslaus arrives. Defeat them separately. Never let them unite. This is Subutais' master plan playing out perfectly. The great strategist who designed the entire European invasion sits in Hungary, but his operational genius touches every battlefield. For Henry, the situation is desperate. He can't wait any longer. If he delays, the Mongols will simply ravage Silesia, burning village after village until Wenceslaus shows up. His people are already terrified. They're calling the Mongols Tartars, a corruption of Tatars that sounds like Tartarus, hell itself. Rumors spread that these invaders are the horsemen of the apocalypse. Some clergy preach that this is God's punishment for Europe's sins. The fear is almost tangible. The stakes are layered. On a personal level, Henry faces the destruction of his duchy and the end of his dream to reunify Poland. On a national level, this is the last Polish army in the field. If it falls, nothing stands between the Mongols and the German principalities. On a civilizational level, everyone knows what's happening in the east. The Mongols have already conquered Rus. They've destroyed the Khwarezmian Empire. They've ravaged Georgia. Everywhere they go, cities burn and populations are enslaved. If they break through Poland, if they defeat Hungary, the road to France and the Atlantic lies open. The sources from this period are fragmentary. We have some contemporary accounts, letters, chronicles written by monks, Mongol records filtered through later historians. The most detailed description comes from Jan Długosz, a Polish chronicler who wrote in the 15th century, more than 200 years after the battle. Historians debate how much he embellished, how much he got wrong. We acknowledge this uncertainty, but certain facts are clear. The armies gathered, the battle happened, and what followed changed everything. The battlefield itself is deceptively simple. Legnickie Pole, 10 kilometers southeast of the city of Legnica. It's an open plain, relatively flat, some gentle rolling hills. Patches of forest in the distance, but the fighting area is clear. This is farmland, normally peaceful. In April, it would typically be green with early spring growth. But today, it will become something else entirely. The terrain favors the Mongols completely. Open ground means room to maneuver. It means their cavalry can operate at maximum effectiveness. It means they can execute their encirclement tactics without obstacles. For the Europeans, particularly the heavy cavalry that forms the core of their military power, open ground seems ideal too. Knights need space to build up speed for a proper charge. The problem is that what looks like an advantage is actually a trap. There are no defensive positions here, no hills to anchor a flank, no forests to protect the rear, no rivers to use as barriers. Henry's army will have to meet the Mongols on completely open terrain, and in that environment, mobility defeats armor, speed defeats strength, coordination defeats courage. The Mongol commanders arrive and immediately seize the highest ground available. It's not much, a gentle rise that gives them maybe 50 feet of elevation, but it's enough. From here, they can observe the entire battlefield. More importantly, they can communicate using their flag system. Mongol armies use coloured banners and flag signals to coordinate movements across miles of battlefield. It's a system that requires training and discipline that European armies simply don't have. Western medieval armies communicate through horn blasts and messengers, which is slow and imprecise. The Mongols can shift entire units with a flag command that every soldier understands instantly. Henry's army begins to assemble. He divides his forces into 4 divisions, following the medieval European practice. Each division will attack in sequence, rather than all at once. To modern military minds, this seems insane. Why not hit the enemy with your full strength simultaneously? But in medieval warfare, coordination across large formations was nearly impossible. Knights fought in relatively independent groups. The idea was that fresh troops could exploit breakthroughs made by the first wave, or reinforce wherever the enemy seemed weakest. In theory, it made sense. Against the Mongols, it would prove catastrophic. The 1st Division goes to Boleslav of Moravia. He commands about 6,000 men. Moravian knights, Bavarian miners who've been drafted into military service, and peasant levies from Greater Poland. The miners are interesting. They're used to hard physical labour, and they're tougher than typical peasants. But they're not soldiers. They've got axes and hammers and makeshift armour. Some have mining tools adapted into weapons. They'll fight hard, but they're not trained for this kind of warfare. The 2nd Division falls under Sulislav of Krakow. He's the brother of the voivode who died at Tursko. This is personal for him. He leads about 7,000 men, mostly survivors from the earlier battles and forces from Greater Poland. Many of these soldiers have already faced the Mongols. They know what's coming. You can see it in their faces. The 3rd Division belongs to Mieszko II, called the Fat. He's Duke of Opole Racibórz, and he's brought about 5,000 men from Upper Silesia. A mix of knights and conscripts. Mieszko is related to Henry, but their relationship is complicated. Polish politics always are. The 4th and final division is under Henry's personal command. This is the elite core of the army. 8,000 men. Silesian knights, the best trained cavalry in Poland. Polish nobles who've brought their retainers. And the Knights Templar. Sources suggest somewhere between 68 and 88 Templar knights. They wear their distinctive white mantles with red crosses. Their armour is pristine. Their weapons are the finest that European smiths can produce. They fought Saracens in the Holy Land. They're professional warriors in an age of part-time soldiers. Their presence is meant to be inspiring. It is, but it won't be enough. The total European force numbers somewhere between 25 and 30,000 men. The cavalry, the knights and mounted sergeants, probably accounts for maybe 7 or 8,000. The rest are infantry. Peasant levies mostly, armed with spears and axes, wearing whatever protection they could scrape together. Quilted jackets, leather caps. Some have shields. Most don't have metal armor at all. Against them, the Mongols field approximately 8,000 cavalry. They started this campaign with 10,000, but they've taken casualties in the earlier battles and the long march from Rus. Every single Mongol soldier is mounted. Every single one is an archer. And, most importantly, every single one has been training for this kind of warfare since childhood. The Mongol composite bow is their primary weapon. It's a recurved bow made of wood, horn and sinew, glued together in layers. The horn provides compression strength. The sinew provides tension. The result is a bow that stores incredible amounts of energy in a compact size. A Mongol archer can shoot it from horseback at full gallop. The effective range is about 200 meters for accurate fire, with a maximum range of 500 meters. Rate of fire is 10 to 12 arrows per minute. Think about that. 1,000 Mongol archers can put 10,000 arrows in the air every minute. They carry different types of arrows. Narrow bodkin points for penetrating armor, broad-headed arrows for unarmored targets, fire arrows for siege work, even whistling arrows with hollow bone tips for signaling. They switch between them depending on what they're facing. Beyond the bow, each Mongol warrior carries a saber for close combat, a lance for charging, and often a lasso for pulling enemies from horseback. They wear lamella armor, small iron or leather plates laced together. It's lighter than European plate mail, but still provides good protection. More importantly, it doesn't restrict movement. The Mongol strategy is already set. They've used these tactics from Korea to Hungary. The plan is elegant in its simplicity. Engage with the vanguard, the Mangudai, the forward screening force. Make contact. Fight briefly. Then retreat. Not a real retreat, a feigned one. Draw the enemy forward. Let them break formation in pursuit. Once they're strung out and disorganized, hit them from the flanks. Use smoke screens to create confusion. Surround them. Pour in arrows from every direction. Then, when they're exhausted and demoralized, commit the heavy cavalry for the final killing blow. It's worked dozens of times before. It will work again. The night before the battle, Henry's camp is a mixture of activity and tension. Soldiers sharpen weapons. The rhythmic scrape of whetstones against steel echoes across the camp. Armourers work by firelight, repairing mail links, adjusting straps, checking rivets. Horses are being shod. You can hear the hammer blows, the occasional whinny when a nail goes in wrong. Men check their lances, running hands along the wooden shafts to feel for cracks or weak points. The Knights Templar have their own area of the camp. They're at prayer. You can hear them chanting psalms in Latin. They take communion. They confess their sins. Tomorrow they might die, and they're preparing their souls. For them, this is a holy war. The Mongols are pagans, invaders, destroyers of Christian lands. The Templars are warrior monks. Fighting is their form of worship. Among the Polish and German soldiers, the mood is different. Many of them fought at Chmielnik or Tursko. They survived those massacres. They know what Mongol arrows can do. They've seen horses go down screaming, riders pulled off and killed before they could even stand. There's fear in the camp. Men try to hide it, but it's there. Some drink, some pray, some sit silently, staring into fires. Henry himself moves through the camp. He stops at different fires, talks to the men, lets them see him. It's what leaders do before battle. Presence matters. He tells them Wenceslaus is coming. One more day. Hold for one day. The lie is mercy. He doesn't know if they can hold for 1 hour. In the Mongol camp, the atmosphere is entirely different. There's no nervous energy, no fear. Just calm, professional preparation. Mongol warriors check their bowstrings, wax them to protect against moisture. They inspect arrows, discarding any with cracks or splits. They rotate their horses, making sure each animal is rested. Mongol cavalry typically had 3 to 5 horses per man. Fresh mounts mean sustained mobility. The commanders meet. Baidar, Kadan, order. They've already scouted the battlefield. They know the terrain. They've established their command post on that low rise. They've sent riders to position bundles of reeds and brush at strategic points across the field. Tomorrow, when the moment comes, those will be set on fire to create smoke screens. Everything is planned. Nothing is left to chance. A Mongol army before battle is like a coiled spring. Quiet, controlled, ready to release devastating force.
Dawn, April 9th, 1241.
The sky is pale grey, the sun not yet fully risen, frost still glitters on the grass. And then the sound begins. Drums, low, rhythmic pounding from the Mongol lines. Not European drums, these are deeper, carried on horseback, designed to be heard across vast distances. The sound rolls across the plain like a physical thing. The European army begins to move. 25,000 men don't deploy silently. There's the clank of armour, the jingle of harnesses, the sound of thousands of feet and hooves on cold ground. Horses snort and stamp. Men shout orders in Polish, German, Latin. The smell of unwashed bodies and horse sweat hangs in the cold morning air. Steam rises from men's breath and from the horses' nostrils. Henry's divisions form up. Boleslav's Moravians and Bavarian miners in front. Then Sulislav's Greater Poland forces, Mieszko's Upper Silesians, and finally Henry's division, the elite corps held in reserve. The plan is simple, because that's all they have time for. The 1st Division will engage, the others will support in sequence. Across the field, the Mongol army arranges itself in their typical formation. It looks loose, almost casual. That's deliberate. Mongol units maintain space between them for maneuverability. They're not packed shoulder to shoulder like European infantry. The Mangudai, the vanguard force, maybe 1,500 light cavalry, position themselves forward. Behind them, the main body of light cavalry. Further back, the heavy cavalry, held in reserve for the decisive moment. The entire force seems to ripple and shift, never quite still. The Mongol commanders sit on that low rise, banners planted in the ground beside them. From here, they can see everything. The European formations, the gaps between divisions, the way the 1st Division's flanks are exposed. They can see the heavy cavalry in the rear, recognizable by their better armour and larger horses. They know exactly what will happen. They've seen it before. The battle begins without ceremony. Boleslav's division starts forward, 6,000 men moving across the plain. The cavalry in front, knights with lances levelled. Behind them, the infantry, trying to keep up but already falling back. A cavalry charge builds speed slowly at first, then accelerates. The ground trembles. Now there's a new sound. Thousands of hoofbeats, building to thunder. The Mongol Mangudai don't wait. They surge forward to meet the charge. But they're not charging. They're skirmishing. As they ride, they start shooting. Arrows arc through the air. Not a mass volley. Individual shots from expert archers who've been practicing since they were children. The range closes. The arrows start hitting. Not many at first. The European knights have good armour. Mail hauberks, some plate elements, shields. The arrows strike and bounce off, or stick in shields without penetrating. But some find gaps. An arrow slides under a helmet's edge and into a neck. Another finds the gap between breastplate and arm, punching through the mail underneath. Horses start going down. A war horse hit in the chest stumbles and falls, throwing its rider. The knight crashes to the ground in 60 pounds of armour. Then the lines meet. Lances against lighter Mongol cavalry. For a moment, the Europeans seem to be winning. The sheer mass and momentum of armoured knights on heavy horses is devastating. Mongols go down. Some are speared. Some are simply knocked off their horses by the impact. There's a brief, brutal melee. Swords against sabres, maces swinging. And then the Mongols break. The Mangudai turn and flee. Not all at once. In groups, peeling away from the fight, riding hard to the rear. The European cavalry sees this and interprets it the only way they know how. Victory. The enemy is running. Chase them down. Don't let them escape. This is the moment. The fatal moment. Boleslav's cavalry surges after the fleeing Mongols. The formation, which was never that tight to begin with, starts to stretch. The fastest horses pull ahead, gaps open. Individual knights become separated from their squadrons. The infantry, already struggling to keep up, falls further behind. Within minutes, the European cavalry is strung out across the field in a ragged line of pursuit. The Mongol Mangudai keep running. They're watching over their shoulders, judging the distance. When the pursuing Europeans have committed fully, when there's no pulling back, the trap springs. Mongol light cavalry appears on both flanks. Not from nowhere. They were always there, positioned wide, waiting for the signal. Now they converge. The European cavalry suddenly finds itself being fired on from the sides. Arrows pour in, not individual shots anymore, coordinated volleys, hundreds of arrows filling the air at once, and then comes the smoke. Mongol riders gallop to the pre-positioned bundles of reeds and vegetation. They drop torches. The dry material catches instantly. Thick, acrid smoke begins to billow across the battlefield. The wind, such as it is, carries it into the European lines. Within moments, visibility drops to almost nothing. The European cavalry is now trapped in smoke, taking arrows from unseen attackers, separated from their infantry and from each other. Horses panic, some bolt, others rear and throw their riders. The sound is chaos, screaming horses, men shouting, trying to find their commanders, trying to figure out what's happening. The clash of weapons, the thud of arrows hitting armour, hitting flesh, hitting horses. Somewhere in that smoke, a Mongol rider circles, shouting in Polish. "Uciekaj! Uciekaj!" Run, run. The voice carries through the confusion. Polish soldiers hear it. Some think it's their own commanders ordering retreat. The psychological impact is immediate. And this is when Mieszko II makes his decision. He's watching from his position with the 3rd Division. He sees the smoke. He hears the chaos. He sees men stumbling out of the cloud, some wounded, some fleeing in panic. And he hears that voice shouting in Polish to run. Mieszko orders his division to withdraw. 5,000 men turn and begin to retreat. This opens a massive gap in the European line. Sulisław, commanding the 2nd Division, suddenly has no support on his flank. But he doesn't retreat. He does what medieval commanders are supposed to do. He attacks, tries to relieve the pressure on Bolesław's division, tries to close the gap Mieszko left. 7,000 men advance. They move into the smoke. The same thing happens. Mongol cavalry on the flanks, arrows from every direction. The sound of thousands of arrows in flight is distinctive. A kind of rushing, hissing noise, like wind through trees, but sharper. Then the impacts, the screams. By mid-morning, 2 of Henry's 4 divisions are locked in a desperate fight they're losing. Bolesław's force is being systematically destroyed. Sulisław's cavalry is surrounded. The infantry, what's left of it, is scattered or dead. And still the Mongol heavy cavalry hasn't even entered the battle yet. Henry can see this developing from his position. The smoke makes it hard to assess exactly what's happening, but the general picture is clear. His army is being torn apart. Wenceslaus is still a day away. There's no help coming. He has 1 division left, his own. The elite force, the Silesian Knights, the Templars. 8,000 men. If he commits them and fails, the battle is over. If he doesn't commit them, the battle is over anyway. He makes the only choice possible. He orders the advance. 8,000 cavalry begin to move forward. These are the best troops in the European army. The knights are fully armoured, mounted on the biggest war horses. The Templars ride in formation, disciplined, professional. Their white mantles marked with red crosses stand out even through the smoke. For a moment, it looks like this might work. The sheer weight of this force is impressive. The Mongols see them coming. The commanders on the rise observe this new formation. Fresh troops, heavily armoured. The response is immediate. Flag signals flash. Mongol units adjust. The Mangudai, what's left of them, engage again. And again, after a brief fight, they retreat. Even Henry's veterans, even the Templars who should know better, chase them. The European military tradition is too strong. A retreating enemy must be pursued, destroyed. To let them escape is to waste the advantage. So they follow the fleeing Mongols into the smoke, into the arrows, into the encirclement. The Mongol light cavalry swarms the flanks again. But this time the Europeans are better armoured, better disciplined. The Templars hold formation. They fight in coordinated groups, shields overlapping, protecting each other. The Mongol arrows are less effective against this level of protection. The armour is working. Mail and plate are doing their job. So the Mongols adjust. They stop shooting at the knights and start shooting at the horses. The war horses aren't as heavily armoured. Some have mail barding on their chests and heads, but their flanks are exposed. An arrow in the hind quarters, another in the barrel of the chest. The great war horses start going down. Once a knight is dismounted in heavy armour, he's not getting back up easily. The armour that protects him also immobilizes him. Dismounted knights try to fight on foot. They're brave, they're skilled, but they're facing mounted archers who can stay out of reach. A knight in full armour can't catch a Mongol rider. He can barely walk. All he can do is stand and die, as arrows find the gaps in his protection. Under the arms, in the face if the visor is up, in the back of the knee. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher. The smoke thins in places, thickens in others as new fires are lit. The battlefield has become a confused mess of isolated fights. European knights in small groups, surrounded by circling Mongol cavalry. Bodies everywhere. Horses down and screaming. The grass is trampled to mud, stained dark. Some accounts mention rockets, gunpowder weapons, fire and flames. The historical record is unclear here. The Mongols did have primitive gunpowder technology acquired from the Chinese. Fire arrows, definitely. Some kind of incendiary devices, possibly. Rockets that explode, more dubiously. But fire was used, you can be certain of that. On a battlefield covered in smoke, with reeds burning, additional fire weapons would fit perfectly with Mongol tactical doctrine. As afternoon shadows begin to lengthen, the Mongol heavy cavalry finally commits. These are the shock troops, held back until this moment. They're more heavily armoured than the light cavalry. They carry lances. And they charge into the exhausted, disorganized European forces from the front, while the light cavalry continues to harass from the flanks and rear. This is the pincer movement perfected. Attack from all directions simultaneously. The Europeans have nowhere to go. They're completely surrounded. Some try to break out. Small groups of knights put their heads down and charge toward what they hope is open ground. Most don't make it. Duke Henry is still fighting. He's in the thick of it with his personal guard. The sources tell us he attempted to break through the encirclement. He's trying to lead his men to safety, or at least to regroup somewhere defensible. It doesn't work. A Mongol lance or spear strikes him in the arm. The blow knocks him from his horse. On the ground, surrounded by Mongol warriors, there's no escape. He's pulled from the melee, and then he's beheaded. The Duke of Silesia, High Duke of Poland, the man who wanted to reunify his country and become king, dies on a muddy field in Silesia. His body is stripped of armour. His head is taken as a trophy. The remaining European resistance collapses quickly after Henry's death. There's no central command anymore. Each unit fights on its own until it's overwhelmed or surrenders or flees. The Mongols pursue the fleeing survivors, cutting them down. This is standard procedure. You don't let a defeated enemy escape to regroup and fight another day. You destroy them completely. The systematic slaughter continues into the late afternoon. The Mongols have a practice of cutting the right ear from each enemy corpse to count casualties. It's a grim accounting method, but effective. Later reports claim they filled 9 sacks with ears. That number is probably exaggerated, but the message is clear. The European army has been annihilated. Silence falls over the battlefield. Not complete silence. There are still sounds. Wounded men moaning, dying horses thrashing, the crackle of dying fires. Carrion birds are already gathering. Crows circle overhead. In the distance, you can hear wolves. They'll come tonight. The plain is covered with bodies. 25,000 to 30,000 men marched out from Legnica that morning. Current estimates suggest 20,000 to 30,000 of them are dead or captured. Essentially, the entire army. The casualty rate is nearly total. This isn't a defeat, it's an extermination. The Mongols lost men too. They must have. No battle is one-sided to that degree, and the European heavy cavalry definitely killed Mongols in the initial charges. But we don't know how many. The sources don't record Mongol casualties. It was probably minimal, a few hundred at most. When tactics work this perfectly, when the execution is this flawless, losses are limited. Duke Henry's body lies somewhere on the field, stripped naked like countless others. But his wife, Anna of Bohemia, will later search the battlefield. She's looking for any sign of her husband. The identification comes from a distinctive feature. Henry had 6 toes on his left foot. It's a detail that survives in the historical record because it's how his body was recognized. Anna finds him. She claims his body for proper burial. At least he gets that dignity. Henry's head has a different fate. The Mongols mount it on a spear. They ride to the walls of Legnica, 10 kilometers away. The city garrison watches as the Mongols parade their duke's head in front of the walls. The message is clear. Your leader is dead. Your army is destroyed. Surrender. The garrison refuses. Legnica does not open its gates. The Mongols don't press the siege. That's not their mission. They've accomplished what they came to do. Other fates can be traced. Boleslav of Moravia is dead, killed during the battle. Sulisław of Krakow is dead. The Knights Templar lost 3 brother knights, 2 sergeants, and approximately 500 retainers, according to a letter sent to King Louis IX of France. That number likely includes civilians from Templar estates, not just fighting men. But the losses were severe. Mieszko II, who ordered his division to retreat, survives. He'll be widely blamed for the defeat. The coward who ran while others died. One day's march to the south, King Wenceslaus of Bohemia receives the news. Messengers arrive at his camp, exhausted, terrified. The Polish army is destroyed. Duke Henry is dead. The Mongols are victorious. Wenceslaus makes an immediate decision. He turns his 50,000-man army around and marches back to Bohemia. There will be no revenge, no attempt to engage the Mongols. He's going to defend his own kingdom and let Poland burn. It's a pragmatic choice, also the smart one. Against the Mongols in open battle, his army would likely suffer the same fate. The Mongols spend the next few weeks ravaging Silesia and Moravia. They don't occupy. They don't try to hold territory. They burn, loot, and move on. Some units venture into Lusatia, probing Saxon territory. But they're not here to conquer Poland. They're here to make sure Poland can't help Hungary. 2 days after Legnica, on April 11th, 1241, the main Mongol force under Batu Khan and Subutai engages the Hungarian army at a place called Mohi along the Sajo River. The Hungarians have learned about Legnica. They know what's coming. It doesn't help. Subutai uses similar tactics on a larger scale. Feigned retreats, encirclement. The Hungarian army is destroyed. King Bela IV barely escapes with his life. Hungary lies open to conquest. Subutai's master plan has worked perfectly. Poland neutralized, Hungary defeated. The road to Vienna, to the German states, to France, to the Atlantic Ocean, Subutai's ultimate goal, the Great Sea, lies open. Europe has nothing left to stop them. And then, in December of 1241, 9 months after Legnica, Great Khan Urgedei dies. He's the 3rd son of Genghis Khan, the ruler of the entire Mongol Empire. The cause is probably alcohol-related. Urgedei was known for heavy drinking. His brothers tried to limit him to 3 cups of wine per day. He solved this by drinking from larger cups. It killed him eventually. When news reaches the Mongol armies in Europe, everything stops. Batu Khan has to return east. All the princes of the blood have to attend the Kurultai, the great council that will elect the next Khan. This isn't optional. Mongol succession law requires it. The invasion of Europe ends not because of military defeat, but because of a political necessity thousands of miles away. The Mongol armies withdraw in 1242. They leave behind devastation, burned cities, depopulated regions, mass graves. But they leave. Europe survives, not through strength or courage or superior tactics, through luck, through the timely death of a drunk Khan half a world away. The death of Duke Henry II changes Polish history for the next 100 years. He was the strongest Polish ruler of his generation. He controlled Silesia, most of Lesser Poland and Greater Poland. He had legitimate ambitions to reunify the fragmented Polish kingdom and crown himself king. With him dead, those plans die too. Poland remains divided. Silesia, weakened by the loss of its duke and the devastation of the Mongol raids, gradually falls under Bohemian influence. Over the following decades, it becomes part of the Holy Roman Empire. Poland loses these territories for centuries. The fragmentation that began in 1138 continues. It won't be until 1320, 80 years after Legnica, that Władysław I finally reunifies Poland and claims the crown. 80 years, almost a century lost. The Mongols return. In 1259 to 1260, another invasion under the command of Burundai ravages Poland. Successful raids, looting, destruction. Poland still can't mount an effective defense. Again in 1286 to 1287, under Tulabuga and Nogai Khan, though this time with mixed results. Some raids succeed, some fail. But the threat continues for generations. Yet Poland and Hungary remain outside the Mongol sphere of influence. They're raided, but never conquered. Compare that to the Russian lands to the east. Rus falls completely under Mongol control. The Golden Horde, established by Batu Khan with its capital at Salai near the Caspian Sea, rules over Russian principalities for more than 2 centuries. The cultural, political, and economic impact on Russia is profound and lasting. Poland and Hungary escape this fate, and the escape shapes their future development dramatically. The tactical lessons of Legnica should have revolutionized European warfare. The Mongols demonstrated that heavy cavalry charges could be defeated by mobile horse archers using feigned retreats and encirclement. They showed that coordination and communication mattered more than individual bravery. They proved that intelligence gathering and planning were as important as the battle itself. European armies should have studied this. They should have adapted. They didn't. Not really. Not for decades. European military traditions were too strong. The culture of knightly combat was too deeply rooted. The idea that mounted archers were superior to armored knights was insulting. So Europe continued to rely on heavy cavalry as its primary striking force well into the 14th century. Eventually, other factors, the English longbow, Swiss pike formations, early firearms, would break the dominance of heavy cavalry. But it wasn't because they learned from Legnica. What Europe did learn was defensive warfare. Castles worked. The Mongols could take them, but it took time and resources. The strategy of withdrawing into fortifications, denying the Mongols supplies and easy targets, proved more effective than meeting them in open battle. This becomes the standard response to steppe nomad invasions for the next several centuries. The memory of the battle survives in Poland. April 9th is remembered as the day Poland stood against the Eastern invasion. Duke Henry II is commemorated as a martyr. The battle appears on the tomb of the unknown soldier in Warsaw with the inscription Legnica, 9th April, 1241. In 2015, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Legnica opened the cause for beatification of Henry II. He's been granted the title Servant of God. The process continues. The true meaning of Legnica isn't about heroic last stands or glorious defeats. It's about the collision of two completely different systems of warfare. Medieval European combat was based on individual prowess, personal honor, and cavalry charges. Mongol warfare was based on coordination, tactical flexibility, and systematic destruction of enemy forces. When the two systems met, one proved vastly superior to the other. Courage wasn't enough. Faith wasn't enough. Better armor wasn't enough. The Mongols had a better military system, and the result was inevitable. That stone that fell from the church tower as Henry rode out was indeed an omen. But the disaster it predicted wasn't just Henry's death. It was the demonstration that European military power, for all its armor and tradition, couldn't stand against the perfected killing machine that the Mongols had become. Centuries later, the village of Legnica still exists. It grew on or near the battlefield. Archaeologists have searched for the exact location of the fighting. They've found mass graves, skeletons showing trauma consistent with the historical accounts, arrow wounds, cavalry combat injuries. The Museum of the Battle of Legnica opened in 1961, on the 720th anniversary. Researchers continue to study the site, trying to piece together exact details that medieval chronicles left unclear. The field itself is quiet now, farmland again. But on April 9th each year, people remember. They remember 25,000 men who marched out to face an enemy they didn't understand, using tactics that didn't work, in a battle they couldn't win. They remember Duke Henry II, who tried to save his country and died in the attempt. And they remember the day Europe learned that courage alone wasn't enough to stop the horsemen from the east. The Mongols proved their point, and then they left. And Western civilization survived not because it defeated them, but because a Khan died drunk thousands of miles away at exactly the right moment. Sometimes history turns on the strangest things. So the story ends here. Now, my wonderful friends, you're still here at this point, aren't you? If you're really still watching right now, then something about this story has touched your heart in some way. And now, let me share something with you from a different angle. Duke Henry had everything: power, armies, dreams of becoming king. But on that frozen field, none of it mattered. 25,000 men couldn't save him because they weren't truly united. They fought as separate divisions, each waiting their turn instead of standing together. And you know what? We do this too. We face our battles alone, waiting for the perfect moment, thinking we have to be the hero by ourselves. But the Mongols won because they moved as one, coordinated, connected, completely in sync. Here's what Stoicism teaches us. We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Henry couldn't control the Mongol invasion, but he chose to stand and fight for something bigger than himself. That's courage. Not the absence of fear, but action despite it. Your battles might not be on a medieval battlefield, but the principle is the same. Stop fighting alone. Reach out. Connect. Move together with the people who matter. That's how we survive what seems impossible. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because we're building something together here, one story at a time. See you in the next one.